I would like now to lead into a specific inquiry that came our way. Okay, so the inquiry we are faced with is, what is conscience? How does it arise? What is its function? And something curious happened when I stayed with this inquiry this week, and it led me first into the word itself. So it actually led me into the appreciation of language. And because I started to think about science, conscience, science, what's the significance of this word? And I asked myself, what is the meaning of con? And then that led me to reflect that we see a phenomenon in the language, that the language sometimes throughout the centuries, there will be specific words that will go through a reversal of the meaning of the word. So there is a question is, why do we see a reversal of the meaning of words? That's me working on why the current dictionary meaning of con is to cheat, to deceive, because I know the prefix con to mean something very different that I'll talk about in a minute. So a few examples of words that experience this reversal, which one way to contemplate about it is, we understand that every domain contains its polarity, it's both ends. So when we are no longer in touch with the essence, with the sourcing essence of a word, often the meaning will actually reverse itself, which is a curious phenomenon to consider. Here are a few examples. The word nice used to mean stupid, ignorant, or foolish. It now means something refined, pleasant, or agreeable. The word artificial used to refer to work of art, but by the 15th century, it changed to mean fake, or specifically man-made. Well, the word silly used to mean you felt blessed, happy, or fortunate. Now it means you lack a good sense of judgment. You're being foolish. And then the word prestigious used to mean trickery and illusion. It now means distinguished, esteemed, prominent, honored, reputable. And the word garble used to mean sift and separate out impurities. It now means to cause something to be confusing. So I brought that awareness to the conundrum of con. Why is con, C-O-N, used now in the language to describe cheating, deceiving, when I recognize that the letter C-O-N at a mesoteric and an esoteric level will carry a different meaning. And in the context of conscience or conscience, what does it mean? Because the word science means to know. And so what does it mean to know, C-O-N? Well, the mesoteric understanding of what C-O-N means is, it is the building blocks of life. So conscience would invite us to know the building blocks of life. Why the building blocks of life? Well, because carbon is the basis for life on Earth, making about 50% of the biomass of all living things, which is made possible because the nature of carbon is one where it can easily connect with other elements to build these molecules that will produce proteins and cells and all the other important building blocks of life. And not only that, we then understand that when we look at the air and what constitutes the air, then about 78% is nitrogen and 21% is oxygen. So in actuality, when we look at carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen, it's a way to describe the building blocks of life. So the mesoteric level would invite that all of those words we see to begin with CON, they invite us to consider that there is something to do with the building blocks of life. But when I look at the letter CON from an even deeper, more esoteric point of view, they represent cosmic planetary process. Cosmic planetary process. And that means that words like conceive or conception begin with the appreciation that what the word is about is some cosmic planetary process. The word like connect or connection indicates a cosmic planetary process. So I'd invite that we bring that when we consider the word conscience. We are seeking and inquiring about a process or a function, a cosmic planetary process that brings us to know of itself, to know the building blocks of life, to know the cosmic planetary process. That is the earlier warming up of my mind when I say I want to engage the mental portal in inquiring into conscience. I needed to do that because I wanted to step back from what was initially offered in chapter 2. In chapter 2, we described that conscience was a self-arising moral presence, that it is an awakened power in the soul to reassert its self-directing charisma. That was described in the context of the soul having contracted through a separation event, and that one of the ways it is awakened back to expand from the contracted to the more expanded range that is naturally available for it, is that awakening arises with the impulse of conscience, and that it draws and builds on the activated memory, which is the point that Paul raised a moment ago. It draws and builds on the activated memory of the promise of its committed purpose to serve the larger significance and potential of your higher purpose. And what we said in chapter 2 was that partly the soul's conscience is awakened with a tinge of embarrassment when the soul is not fully available to its natural, as was meant to be, range. And it is out of that compromised fidelity that that sense is awakened, because the soul wants to fulfill its promise, its commitment to what it sees to be its overlord, its guiding presence in the spirit, support the spirit in its greater significance. And the sense of it has the remembering that awaken the soul's conscience, and the desire to reclaim that fuller orchestration. So that much was described in chapter 2. So here is what I would like to build into it. And the invitation is that as I do, again, I'm using words. We're wired to receive in the head. We're wired to compare notions and concepts and maps of meaning in the head. And the invitation is that as we explore this next bit about the threefold nature of conscience, that you allow yourself to hear it and also to sense and feel it, and rather than just listening with our head, that we listen to it in our soul and see what the soul loom of reference and experience would say to that, and whether it will resonate intuitively immediately or whether no. And all of the responses are legit. You don't have to believe to anything I say. The premise in this journey is an invitation to discover for yourself what of this, if anything, you would find as true. So, conscience, a threefold soul guidance. That's the invitation we're making here, that what conscience is a form of guidance, and that guidance has threefold brief, and that the presence, the way we experience conscience, is we experience it as a self-aligning inner angelic presence. The actuality of the conscience impulse is a kind of angelic inner presence. It evaluates, it regulates, it nudges, it directs, it helps you realize where you want to go. And the sense of this is that the first impulse, the first conscience impulse, is a planetary calling. And what the planetary calling is a program in the soul that remembers in a throughout fashion your highest, most potent intentions. So all the times I sat down and I prayed, all the time you wrote in your journaling, or when you were out in nature, or when you embarked on a particular process in any modality, and it led you to produce in yourself an intent, whatever that was. The intent may have been, I want to be the best father I can be. The intent could have been, I want to be an effective caregiver wherever I am. In my case, one of my highest, most potent intentions for many, many years were that I aspire in whatever circumstance I'm coming into to offer it easement, to offer it access to greater understanding and clarity. I'm not always successful. In fact, often I fall on my face, but it's an intent. And when I fall on my face, it's that first soul conscience that reminds me, if I didn't have the patience, if I didn't have that fully aware presence that I wanted to have, that alertness on the inside that I want to be even more fully present to the potential of that moment, is that first impulse of conscience. Let me just pause here to let you feel your way with that first impulse. And what might be your highest, most potent intention that you instructed your soul to remember for you, and as Emmy suggested earlier, where there is a place to offer an updating intention when you come through a phase transition in your journey. Okay, we will in a few minutes come back once I unfolded the three, and again we'll play music and let you discover what perhaps are the messages you're getting from each of those dimensions of conscience. But let me bring now the second impulse of conscience. Well, the second is spiritual calling. Spiritual calling in the sense we described in chapter 1, where the recognition was that the soul carries a throughout remembrance of the purpose you came to this life with, including the unique and particular qualities and capacities, configuration, the gifts, the genius that you are wired to manifest, regardless as to whether you're fully aware of that or not. That calling, that memory that you came into this life with, that you are here to serve in a particular way, is the conscience of that second impulse. If you have been on a journey of purpose for many years, you are probably already decoding and have decoded some of that for you. In my case, I've discovered that some of the way I have been wired is to facilitate an ease flow, which had a penalty in it because it meant that I was time and again led in my life, biographically speaking, to circumstances that were a little stuck, or a lot stuck, not just little. And I needed to experience the pain of that so that I will learn to be a better facility, a better agency for easing flow. The third impulse of conscience is one I'm describing here as universal calling. And the universal calling in that sense represents the nudge, the intuition, the transmission of the throughout remembrance of the permanent universal lines of value and their ensouled presence. I'll explain what that means if the language is a barrier. It's the recognition that the soul has in this third impulse a natural tethering to those permanent lines of value, such as there is something about this universe, it loves to unlock greater complexity, greater connectedness, greater refinement, greater sophistication. So when we are attuned to that conscience in our way of being and doing, we will exhibit, we will express that impulse. There is something about this universe, it is a learning system. It wants to continue to learn. Now, we may be wired also in the first and the second impulse into learning for different reasons. But when we are attuned to the permanent line values of the universe, one of the dimensions we will exhibit will be that sense of the universe is a learning system. It wants to learn, and it can learn, and it learns best through our conscious witnessing experience. So now here is a curious thing. The first impulse holds the promises you made to yourself in this life. And because these are promises you made to yourself, often you'll be conscious of those. And the way it is lodged in your soul configuration is an embossing, the embossing process of your prayers and intentions and agreements and whatever it is that you have used to direct yourself to live into whatever your language is. Some will describe highest potential, some will describe the sense of purpose, some will describe the sense of being who I naturally am. So in that sense, that first conscience is conscious. The second impulse is the throughout remembrance of the promises you came into this life with. They were engraved in your configuration before you showed up to this life. And partly the journey of life, partly the journey of listening, attuning, sourcing that sense of conscience is bringing it from the unconscious to the semi-conscious, to conscious. And those of us that have been on this journey longer, it has perhaps made itself more known. We are more conscious of it. And still, even then, I will say, we continue to discover that every once in a while we go through a phase transition and we are introduced to a new dimension of that purpose that was engraved in us even before we showed up into this life. And the suggestion is that the universal creational promises are there before this lifetime or before any other lifetime. They are there throughout, washing inside the constitution of the universe. And they are initially unconscious. However, one of the premises of a spiritual journey, one could say that a spiritual journey, a development journey, is a journey to where we seek to become conscious of the remembrance that's already constitutionally part of who we are as humans, of the permanent universal lines of value and their growing and soul presence through our life. So I'd offer that as a living contemplation into the function of conscience and how conscience arises. And I want to give you now in a moment an opportunity to listen and attune to this and see what you would offer by way of language. Before I do that, I was not going to miss the opportunity to bring these eternal words of the better angels of our nature that were spoken first in Lincoln's first inaugural address. Because when we say the better angels of our nature, these are words that describe the knowing sense of conscience. And the power of these eternal words is we actually intuitively all know what it means, what they mean and what it means to be in touch with the better angels of our nature. Well, I propose that one way to consider what it means is to be in touch with these. So I'd invite any comment in a minute to this, but I'd want to give you a space to listen and attune to your soul promises and see if you want to put to words any of that, and then we'll bring your voices. Rob, let's play a little music here, please. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rob. Okay, friends, let's open it. It's an opportunity to either speak to soul promises you made, speak to any of the above, or anything else really inside the space of inquiry that we are exploring today. Please, Lisa.
So what came to me, Aviv, was one word: truth. To be looking for truth on all levels in the calling of this life, in my intentions, and the promises that I came into this world with. And the universal calling is to be in the truth and always be seeking that, in my truth and its truth, and the truth of what being human actually is.
Thank you. Please, Ursula.
Well, the word that's come up today for me, based on this kind of sense of seeing my life of the last 71 years and this experience from the standpoint of the soul's journey, I suddenly got the word transfiguration turned up in my mind. And I thought, I'm sure that's part of the signal, the impulse that I had even as a child, because, you know, that idea of being something that's blessed and being a kind of an angelic life, knowing that what I was a part of and came into in this world is not what I want in the world. And I knew that as a young child, really young. And so then I trace my life and I see that it's so true. That feeling that there needed to be some kind of reformation of the soul, of the, you know, human soul, not mine, but the collective soul. It's like an intuitive impulse. And then when I see the trace of the world and all the different states that have happened throughout the centuries, the sense I get more and more now is that we really do need to help the soul to be the best it can be into the next life that it's going to have within the universal domain, which I believe it knows well, but needs to be awakened to as well. That's what I would say at this stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Ursula.
I must say I'm totally amazed by what you put on the screen from a theological and philosophical standpoint. It's really breaking new ground. I'm sure there is professors and students of looking for the meaning of life and looking for what is real and looking for centuries, and you just put it plainly, simply, with color. It's amazing. It's simply stunning where the depth and the profundity of it. So I'm a bit taken off my socks, if that's an expression. Now about as the first thing appeared, the promise made to oneself, this is something that is with me for, say, about 40 years, which is to respect, in the sense of respect, to be able to see something anew, to see someone anew, to look at my husband in the morning and see in his eyes and see what is there today. And I mean, I wish I could do it for everything. Then I would see how dirty my car is. But it's a feeling. It's a throughout thing to want, to recognize, to want to see things for what they are, to see the qualities in people for what they are. And then as the second one and the third one appeared, I could see that this is something that the universe, the creation, probably does, because maybe this is one reason why it creates so many different trees, so many different cats, so many different landscapes. It doesn't want same things, uniform things, flat. It wants the diversity, the multiplicity to be seen, to be observed. And we humans are those that can do it. It's part of the gift, of the charisma of being given senses, to use them in a spiritual way, in a giving back way. So congratulations for this. It's so simple and yet so profound. Amazing.
Yeah. Thank you, Theodora. So thank you for the kind words. The kind words. The sense of this is that it's part of a collective discovery. So that's where the inquiries that are arising today will possibly continue to yield more and adjacent inquiries, which is why this body of work seems to now want to emerge through a co-creative inquiry, because you will discover, and other people here will discover, other aspects of this. Something now, when we look at the conditions of our world, when we look at the breakdown in the world, when we listen deeply to our souls, we know that this planet is now flying through this, around the center of the galaxy, around the center of the universe, where the people that's supposed to know certain things, people are in positions of power, are flying blind, or worse, got drunk, or even worse. So we understand that part of the cataclysmic power of this moment is that so much is out of control, planetarily speaking. Environment, energy, economy, all those issues that we talked about in the past. And the deepest intuition here is we're not going to be able to solve the problems we created with the same mindset that created this problem. That's why chapter 3 led into this Einstein brief, and it will continue to build on this brief. Because what it also says is that when we create structures and solutions and artifacts out of the same mindset that created the problems that we see in the world, then we create new problems. And therefore the intuition here is, could it be that we're called to reintegrate the soul, reintegrate the broader range of the soul, and part of the search is, how do we do that? How do we do that as a whole person? And also, how do we find language? So my continual inquiry is how to find language that will enable us to bring this conversation to scientifically trained, modern conversation space, including even postmodern conversation space, where we will not be left out of the room in the first 5 seconds just because we even dare to use the word soul. So that's part of the nudge here. Thank you. I am going to bring Sus, and then I am going to put a good friend of mine here on the spot and ask Dan Leahy if I could have you join me here, because I haven't had your voice in a while, and if you won't mind, I'd love to have you in the spotlighted area as well. So let's bring Dan into the spotlighted area. We'll go first to Sus, and then we'll bring Dan's voice.
Yes, hello, Aviv. I find this extraordinary, I must say. And it touches on a live inquiry from a few days ago. I was watching a documentary on television of a person who had done terrible things in his life. Things that I know that I have never done. And what happened was I registered myself as I watched this documentary, a tinge of bad conscience. And I thought, this is really weird, because I know I haven't practiced this in my life. Why do I feel a sense of bad conscience about it? However, is it possible that in the perspective of humanity, that we have a soul that can respond to something that happened to humanity? That in the end you were not meant to feel bad about, but because of natural wirings in yourself, you feel this was not meant to happen. And also, does that not give rise to the language formulation that there were things that humans were not meant to see in life?
Thank you. Yeah, you're raising a very powerful awareness. One that I hope to be able to write about later in this series, because where the awareness contemplation you begin to open leads us to is, well, first, Avshalom asked earlier, how do I differentiate between my concerns and the greater soul of humanity concerns? Is there a way to separate between those at all?
Yes.
And the other dimension of that same inquiry is what you're offering. Could it be that as we do our soul journey, that there is a point where we transcend doing just the personal development work, where I am now called to do the soul work for humanity, where I'm called to metabolize, to dialysize, to disarm, to recast some of the collective memory, and that could it be that there is such a thing that we could do as world work, human soul, humanity's soul work, by deciding to make this very daring, very courageous leap that says, well, whatever I see in the world, some of it is inside me. Even those things I abhor or detest or feel very defiant against. And if yes, if I allow that to arise in my soul, what is the interior process? What is the dialysizing process? And could it be that part of what we are grappling with now, if humanity is to actually work through this point of crisis, we will have to find a way to do this work collectively. And there ain't, in the sense that there ain't going to be a way to just transcend and escape the current reality, but rather disarm and integrate all that has happened as a foundational transition for a better, healthier, weller, more beautiful and luminescent world that would want to arise for all of our souls. So let me bring Dan Lee, because Dan and I, we were part of a circle of people that we called Souls on Deck. That's a circuit that started exactly 19 years ago, I think. And we were back then inquiring similar questions. So I'm curious, what's alive for you from this journey here today?
Well, it does feel a little familiar in terms of the conversations we used to have when we gathered. There's a part of me that feels like overwhelmed or challenged, by the way that you're framing it, because I found myself, it goes into my head, like, can I understand this? Like, I think it makes sense, but I'm not sure I'm really getting it. If I don't get it, then will I be able to sort of do my soul work, if you will? So there's a part of me that's wrestling with that. That there's another part that goes like, phew, like, to the degree to which I totally don't understand it yet, then maybe I don't have to do anything. So that's one dynamic that's going on for me. But the second is actually this background here, which is a very special place for me and my family. It's a place where we have gone several different times, and I have a sense of, in that place, being really sort of present to and connected with my family and the overall environment and my place in it. So it's really a grounding place. And we went back to it about a month ago, and this path behind me is no longer there. you got lost in a landslide. And I found myself going, well, that fits, because it seems like that's what's going on the planet right now. Well, damn it. So there's still a sense of soul in the place, but it ain't what it used to be. And how do I find my way? How do I find my place? How do I find the path in that? And at least for this moment in time, it's not about up here. It's more like what's calling and pulling me this way. So I'm finding in this conversation today, it's like, so how do I combine the two? How do we integrate this part and the understanding part?
Well, thank you for that. You kind of giving me, stay here with me, because you're giving me permission in what you just said there to bring one last slide for today, which talks about the pool you are describing. And I wanted to integrate one more dimension to this, which is the consideration that, so when you look at the actuality of it, this activated memory of the promises your soul carries, often it will manifest in the two actions of conscience. What you feel called into, and also what you won't do. In other words, another way to describe it is what you feel called to move towards, and perhaps what you will move away from. Because these are two drivers of how conscience will express itself. Now, if we stayed longer with it, we could be inquiring into the broader portfolio of actuation of how an intelligent, wise conscience will actuate itself with us. Such as, for example, this moment in a conversation, Dan, when you are with students and you would feel all of a sudden that you are not 100% present and your thoughts were wandering, and your conscious will call you to be not just 97% present, but 100% present, because you promised yourself to be an agency for their discovery. So that internal, very fine tuning nudges from the inside, where the framework that I put in the previous slide goes away. It's more, how do I live inside this body, inside this human model, into the fullest possibility of being a human at this time. So that's what, I didn't know if that slide will have a place, but you just gave me an excuse to bring it up, so thank you. Well, we're kind of out of time for today, so we covered all that we wanted to cover, and I'm going to bring it back to Lisa in a moment. The thing to say before that, everything we travel to today is a starter. Nothing is a dogma. All of it is an open-ended inquiry. The sense of this is being in conversation with ourselves and with each other, and continue the journey into the soul. So thank you for being here. Thank you for participating, for your inquiries, for your support in all sorts of ways. We're just warming up. This soul odyssey is young, and it will travel to many more places. So Lisa, please bring us home.
Aviv, I'd like to bring the rest of the team, if you don't mind.
Please.
Give me one moment here. I don't have words actually to say how I've been moved by today. And as you said, this is just the beginning. As every time we meet, it's just an inquiry that opens up so much more. And as Theodora said, she said it so beautifully, this is such special work, such special work. And I'm very moved, and I would like to take the time, and I hope we all can take the time to soak this in as we take next steps as our inquiry into the soul continues. And so thank you so very much, Aviv. And does anybody else want to add anything in?
Well, Lisa, thank you. Rob, thank you for bringing us to this ecology through music. Thank you, team. Thank you all. Let's bring all our voices into the room to say good day and goodbye and a wonderful, blessed weekend. And we can all be with this invitation from Raphael, helping each other construct a soul ecology wherever you go, so you travel safe and you can do your soul work wherever you are, quiet space or a difficult place. Let's bring all our voices, please.
Hooray!
Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be continued.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.